This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Laws on the books in Michigan may be used against Donald Trump, where he'll be prosecuted for election interference and for voter suppression. That if the Michigan Supreme Court rules the right way in a case involving two right-wing, alt-right MAGA conspiracy theorists and robocallers named Jack Burkman and Jacob Wall, who launched a campaign to make 85,000 robocalls targeting black voters to convince them not to vote by absentee or mail-in ballot during the 2020 election. Now, those two gentlemen you may have already heard about got prosecuted and found liable in New York. They prosecuted and found liable in Ohio. The Federal Election Commission has also, and the FCC has brought charges against them. And now Michigan brought felony charges through their Attorney General, Dana Nessel, against these gentlemen under statutes that stop voter suppression. In particular, these statutes that are on the books that were debated in the Michigan Supreme Court just this week prohibit the use of corrupt means and devices to deter or influence the vote. So it's not about trying to convince somebody to vote for Biden instead of Trump or Trump instead of Biden. It's about undermining the integrity of the voting process and trying to suppress the vote, especially here in targeting black voters in particular. For instance, in Detroit, Michigan, 79% of the voting population is black. And so let me just give you the facts first, then we'll get into the debate and how Donald Trump's name came up out of the mouth of a Republican-appointed justice of the Michigan Supreme Court during the recent oral argument. Here's an example of the robocalls that were sent, right? These automated, computer-generated calls to black voters in all the battleground states, including Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and Florida. Here's what an example of the robocalls used by Burkman and Wall. Mail-in voting sounds great, but did you know that if you vote by mail, your personal information will be part of a public database that will be used by police departments to track down old warrants and be used by credit card companies to collect outstanding debts? The recording continued. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is even pushing to use records from mail-in voting to track people for mandatory vaccines. Don't be finessed into giving your private information to the man. Stay safe. All right, you see how nefarious, how insidious this robocall is? The fear of voters about debt collection, the Internal Revenue Service, COVID vaccines, and all of that in a giant jumble to try to suppress the vote. That's the felony. The question at the Michigan Supreme Court was whether the statute on the books was overbroad and or vague constitutionally because it could suppress First Amendment protected political speech. And that's where the Donald Trump issue came up, as one of the Republican justices said, couldn't this statute literally be applied to Donald Trump in his arguments that there was a rigged election through mail-in balloting? Now, sort of a debate broke out with the Deputy Solicitor General, who's the person primarily responsible for arguing the position on behalf of the state, right, the state of Michigan, against the defense lawyers for these two basically indefensible lowlives of Burkman and Wall about voter suppression, in which I think rightly so, the Attorney General or the Solicitor General said that, no, this doesn't attack core First Amendment political campaign speech, not trying to suppress that. It's just trying to criminalize and prosecute people who through artifice, schemes, trickery, deceit, false statements, try to undermine the integrity of the voting process and suppress the vote, especially here, targeting black voters as well. Also civil rights violation, also violations federally of the KKK Act. And some of those issues have already been litigated in places like New York. But we're here focused on Michigan state law, Michigan's Attorney General prosecuting these people, and then the implications. Could Dana Nessel, that's the question for this hot take, bring her own election interference case against Donald Trump, and what is the signal? I think if she wins at the Supreme Court level, and the odds are in her favor, 4 democratically appointed Supreme Court justices in Michigan, 3 Republicans, so 4-3. On that, if they uphold and strengthen the governor's hand, I think she's likely to go after Donald Trump as well. Remember, Dana Nessel is one of the attorney generals around the country that's also going after the fake electors and has indicted them and gotten some of them in her state to already cooperate in her investigation. We know that's also going on in places like Colorado. So I think this could be a tremendous victory for the attorney general and her powers in Michigan. And could this statute on its face, the way it reads, which is, for those who want to look it up, it's Michigan statute 168.93 2a. If you're playing the justice and politics home game, that's where you would look for that particular statute. I think if she gets that win here, she could use that against Donald Trump and others like Rudy Giuliani and Bernie Kerik and Jenna Ellis and Sidney Powell and the rest about what they did to undermine the integrity of the absentee ballot, mail-in ballot system in Michigan and in other battleground states. These are important, these little data points, right? These pieces of information that on Legal AF, the leading podcast devoted to law and politics and justice that I co-anchor and co-founded, we talk about every week. We do it in hot takes, just like this one. If you like this kind of content, and so that you can integrate it and synthesize it into other information that we've provided you or that you learn on your own, great. Give me a thumbs up. It helps with the reviews and the content and the ratings and all of that. And then join us every Wednesday and Saturday on Legal AF. It is what you think. It's the leading podcast devoted to those types of issues. We do about 4 or 5 developments in the law, just like this one, with my co-anchors, Karen Friedman, Nick Nifolo, and Ben Meisalis. And then we use, as the leaders of Legal AF, our collective 75 years of legal experience in courtrooms and courthouses, appellate courtrooms just like this one all around the country. And we bring it to you as part of our analysis. And when we debate, we agree a lot, we disagree a lot. But it's all part of that messy process that we call Legal AF and the podcast. So come join us and pick up our audio podcast wherever you get your podcast from, from Spotify, Google, Apple, and the like. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.